Sunday, January 15, 2023. Episode 2 of the first season of Blood on the Tracks saw the continuation of the story of Phil Spector, this time looking at the nightmarish marriage that he had with Ronnie Spector. Poor woman. There is a new podcast named The Last of Pods, which is obviously about the new television series The Last of Us, that I won't be able to watch. I can only afford so many subscriptions, and moving into a property with no television aerial means that subscription services are a must if we want to watch anything on television anyway. I listened to the trailer for the podcast, which is a co-production from comicbook.com and Entertainment Tonight. Getting political here, but once the UK gets rid of the whole television licensing business, then I'll have a bit of money to spare and we'll see what we can afford, subscription-wise. Desert Skies episode 3 was a great episode about a game-playing malevolent being, which was quite fun when there were, was it Carcinopoly, I think the episode's called, so it's a variation of Monopoly, and he's got like variations of games, and he makes the games himself, and then they play games, and it was quite a cool episode, and the ending was unexpected but fun. During the latest episode of Comic Book Nation, the wonderful Matt Aguilar was having so much fun playing with newly released Power Rangers toys. He's like a big kid. He's funny. I listened to the latest episode of Two Legs where they gave a review of the fantastic new book, The McCartney Legacy. And people have moaned about the quality of the paper that's used for the book. But in a way, and this is mentioned in the episode by Tom, that, translating it to English, this book would not have been £25 if it had had quality paper. It would have been around £75 to £100 with what's there, because it's an enormous tome of a book, and there's a hell of a lot in there. And, also take into account, it's volume 1, and it's only doing from 1969 to 1973, so that's 4 years. The next one, volume 2, from the chat that I had with Ken, I'm giving something away here, but he's explaining how volume 2 is going 74 all the way to the end of Wings, I think. So 1980-81. So that's volume 2. If you think about it, all these books, because there'll be at least 4 or 5 books maybe, I would have thought, could you imagine if it was quality and you were paying £75 to £100 per book? That is a bloody big outlay for the full series that will eventually come out. And it will come out because it's going down really well all over the place. So you're rambling here, Marv. Go on, get on. Electronic Leor saw Martin Ware, who, previous guest on Pods Like Us. He was chatting with Dave Gamson, the keyboard player and the main co-writer of Scrittability songs with the lead singer Green Gartside. Dave is a classically trained keyboard player, pianist, and he's the son of a composer, conductor father, and his mother was a professional dancer. My main takeaway from the episode of This Week in Marvel this week was that I really want one of those, at least one copy of the comic books that are coming out this year, where, because it's the 100th anniversary of Walt Disney Studios, the comics, the Marvel comics, which are owned by Disney now, they've got variant covers where classic Disney characters such as Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto, they're all dressed up as the superheroes in the comics. So that'll be a fantastic bit of fun. Holidays After Dark saw Kristin looking at so many different traditions and days for Mother's Day around the world. Beauty Unlocked saw Carissa looking at the subject of stretch marks and why they are so hated. Look, they're not awful people. Oh, say that again, Martin. They are not awful things. In fact, one of the facts from the show was that you're more likely to come across people with stretch marks than there are people who drink coffee. That is a statistic that I was like, all right, that's an interesting one. And also for the listening that night, Behind the Song looked at the song Right Now by Van Halen. Apparently the music was written in somewhere around the early to mid-80s and was actually turned down by David Lee Roth. So many years later, Sammy Hagar wrote some lyrics, just, because the idea came to him of these lyrics for the song Right Now, not knowing anything about the music that Eddie Van Halen had written many years before. And Eddie looked at the lyrics and listened to what Sammy was, saying and the melody, and worked out that the melody and the lyrics matched perfectly with this music that he'd written many years before. So there you go. So anyway, that's it for that for the 15th of January. Monday, January 16th, 2023. Monday was not a great night for podcast listening. It was one of those busy nights at work, so time wasn't the best. I did my usual thing of making sure that I listened to the latest episode of the Jerry Anderson podcast. Sorry, yawning there. So that I could stay up to date with that show. Then, after that, a little bit later on in my listening, in fact, I'd arranged most of my listening prior to actually leaving for work, to be honest. But as a fan of the band Yellow Magic Orchestra, I was sad to hear of the passing of their drummer, Yukihiro Takahashi, whose playing was solid, metronomic, and inventive. His playing with Sadistic Mike was also incredible, perfectly matching their progressive rock edge that they had. Because of this, I looked for a podcast that might have something to do with the man, and I happened upon the show Japan Top 10, which I've now subscribed to on Apple Music. And there was an episode on there all about Yellow Magic Orchestra, which was such a great episode as well, with some phenomenal song choices and some great information about the band and its history and its importance on the music world as well, which is very much missed and overlooked. A new episode of On the Night Train had become available, and also the Mastercast, there was a new episode as well about that. So obviously they became part of the night's listening. I continued trying to catch up with the great shows Holidays After Dark and Beauty Unlocked, both presented by strong women or strong female hosts, and both shows always have superb content. I listened to a great chat on the Comfortable Spot where host Ken chatted with the guest Rob from the podcast Euro Trip Eurovision, all about the Eurovision Song Contest. Yep, some people like it, obviously. Other than that, I also had a listen to my chat with Alan Kozin that I'd recorded last week, which I think is going to have very minimal edits, but at the same time, it's a bloody long chat. However, I also think that it's a fascinating chat, and I'm really looking forward to putting it out as soon as I can on Patreon, earlier than its official release date of the 5th of February. Anyway, we'll leave that there because it's around the 10-minute mark now that I'm trying to keep for these shows. But thanks for listening and take care.